and welcome to another exciting episode of Transformers 84 to 2024, 40 years of rolling out with myself, Oddimus Prime, and my esteemed colleague, PrimeTime Moff. Hello, Moff.
Hello, Simon.
This week, we have reached the second year of the Transformers brand, 1985. So, what things stick out to you about 1985, Mr. Moff?
1985. What a year. I think we know that 1984 was popular. We know that obviously Optimus Prime is like the Christmas toy of the year. But you get in 1985 and Hasbro clearly are like, oh my goodness, we've got something good in our hands. What are we going to bring out this year? What toys have we got? What can we use? And we see them actually leaning into other companies' toys. So rather than just being on Microman and Microchange, we see them leaning into other fantastic lines, which means we get some really cool things like Jetfire. We see, some of these obviously didn't arrive in the UK shores, but we see like Jetfire, we see the deluxe Insecticons, Shockwave, Omega Supreme, Roadbuster, Whirl. So we see them leaning into um, other other companies' figures that then start to change how they look. So I think, for me, a lot of 1984, even doing a Soundwave, for example, against that Optimus Prime, they still feel like they're in the same, toy line. And then as we move into 85, and obviously it changes as we go on to the kind of 86 and onwards, we see that evolution into newer, different ones. But some absolute striking examples in 1985 of toys that just stand out a mile, and start to evolve what we saw in the first season. Some absolute crackers in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I did actually make a list of all the different companies that were,
Oh,
or what the different companies were that were
yeah.
harvested for licensing. Um, but at the time, there was a Japanese company that actually went under just as this was all taking place, called Takutoku, which I probably pronounced terribly. But they were responsible for the majority of the figures that came out as part of this sort of expansion of the main sort of Takara line. So that was they had the Macross license, so they were producing. They produced Jetfire. The Deluxe Insecticons were from a show called or a line called Armored Insect Battalion Beatras. Shockwave was from a different company, and there's some debate. Well, there's a whole complicated thing. I encourage you to read exactly how complicated Astro Magnum is. Several different companies licensed to produce the toy, and I think Hasbro licensed it from a license as opposed to directly from. Anyway, complicated. Omega Supreme was from a company called Toybox. Roadbuster and Whirl were from a line called Dorvac, again from Takutoku. So that's basically where all they came from. But it's interesting because at this point, although as kids growing up in the 80s, we just saw new Transformers. We didn't have any clue
Yeah.
where these were coming from. And the vast majority of them, we probably didn't even have a clue about until they eventually turned up in the comics, or you saw a picture of them in a what are the catalogs? I remember getting a catalog
Mhm.
from a Transformer I bought in, I think it was on a holiday on France or Spain, but it had the deluxe Insecticons on the in the catalog, which of course we'd never seen.
Mm.
It was just this whole sort of mystery additional stuff. Because again, what we get in the UK is vastly different from what was
Yeah.
available in the States.
And that's interesting because I never knew about the Deluxe Insecticons until the internet. I had never seen them, didn't know anything about them, and then I saw them, and it was this kind of mind blowing moment of there was toys that were not what we saw in the shelves. That's amazing. And, you know, it doesn't take away from what we actually got. You know, if I think about 1985, and the two bits that automatically come to my mind is the Dinobots and the Insecticons. You know, we'd properly start to see some real subgroups, and see some themed ones. So you had your Dinobots that look totally different to everything else that's been before, but look really good together. And then you've got your Insecticons who I don't know if there's a better subgroup than the Insecticons for how they look. The colouring, they look so good together, but again, still looks slightly different to what we've had before, where, you know, the both of these, in the nicest way, they're not. There's not somebody would see a real the real Grimlock, or the real Grimlock, and go, oh, that's a real dinosaur. And same with the Insecticons. As much as they're robots in disguise, their disguise aren't very good, but
No,
they're awesome
no,
looking toys.
exactly. Anything that really wasn't a sort of a role play item or a vehicle, the disguise element sort of rapidly goes out the window. But you know, we were kids. We didn't care. So other than the change in the toys, and obviously it's introduced Shockwave, who was a big part of the show and the comics and everything else, and is one of the most popular characters. Obviously, he appeared in the first season of the cartoon, which obviously meant that they were intending to bring him over. And I think there might have been he might have turned up sort of tail end of '84, but I think it's uh, majoritatively
Yeah.
1985. But then we got the second season of the cartoon, another 45 episodes. Amazing that they used to do so many episodes of shows back in those days.
Oh,
These days,
crazy how much they churned out.
yeah, I mean, we got 2 seasons of the new Master of the Universe, totally the grand total of 15 episodes. But yeah, and of course, the cartoon started airing in Japan, which it hadn't up until this point. Transformers as a brand wasn't really a thing in Japan until 1985. So that makes a big difference to things moving forward.
I think that for me, some of the new things that happened in this year, that have a huge impact on my collecting and my love of Transformers were the Ladybird
Ah,
books.
yes, the Ladybird
And
books.
I absolutely love Ladybird books. And actually, the idea, even when you know yourself, when you look at them and they look like the toys rather than being like, so,
Yes.
NC and this kind of, I don't know how much you see. You can see Gears looks more like the toy rather than the
Yeah, yeah,
cartoon.
yeah.
But the bit I poured over this of the in the front pages, it has a breakdown of your, I mean, it's your your season one characters, but it still breaks down and tells you, Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. It goes through a little bit of information for each of them. So those bots that you maybe didn't have, or for me, I hadn't seen the cartoon much. These were something that I could really get my imagination going for those characters, and I think that's a real interesting bit. The other one that you have to remember this year is the year we have the pleasure of Simon Furman joining the franchise.
Yes,
Simon
indeed.
Furman writes his first comics in 1985. Somebody who we both know well through TFUK Con, and it is an absolute pleasure of a person to speak to.
Literally the
But you
loveliest
think
guy.
about, yeah, exactly, and it's somebody who to this day still has such an influence on Transformers. His writing style, his characters he develops influence so much of what we've got now. A lot of the writers now, their person looked up to the person they read was Simon Furman. So I think it's incredible to think that 1985. So he's 39 years in the Transformers, whereas we talked about Bob last week being 41. I just think it's incredible to look back and think that at that point, we spoke to him at the con and interviewed him. That feeling of just enjoy getting in as a job and what it becomes.
Mm.
Lots of firsts in this year. Certainly, not so much in the toys, but in the memorabilia and the expansion into, as we say, Ladybird books. We've got the first annual this year. We've got the Spectrum game. So I've never actually played it on a Spectrum, but I've got the tape. We see Transformers starting to expand from just being a toy line, which it never really was just a toy line, but it then becomes on all encompassing. You think of the things we would have seen as kids, the colouring books, your pencil toppers, all these kind of things start to come in 1985 when they realise they have got something massive on their hands that they can then start marketing out. And, as we get into the 40th year this year, we're seeing them doing the same again this year with the 40th. So it's a real interesting year from that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the explosion of merchandise after the first year it's significant. And we're only a few years out from Star Wars, which is the first time like more than a toy line really sort of became a thing with a piece of media. And this is a toy line that has a cartoon to sell it, and then off the back of that you have additional items that are just all over the place, books and comics and rubbers and all sorts of other bits and bobs. But it's bonkers. And of course, this is the first year that there was any home VHS or Betamax, as it was as well at that point.
Yeah.
So More Than Meets the Eye, which was the first few episodes, we got them. Might have been 85, might have been a little bit later than that, but we had them as a rival from Cybertron.
Yeah.
Which is almost
I remember seeing the first release of was it on DVD, I'm sure. And I was like, what's More Than Meets the Eye? That, hadn't really fully clicked, that was the same as the what we'd got, as you say, Arrival from Cybertron. That's what I saw it as. That's what I still call it, Arrival from Cybertron. Because
always.
That's what I know it as. And I think that's the interesting bit with it, with any aspect of this franchise is, and there's lots of bits where people call things different names. Of last week I'm sure we mentioned Frenzy and Rumble. The other one that comes in this year is, or when we get a toy of it, is Skyfire and Jetfire. We have the Jetfire toy comes out, and it's the Macross toy. Looks nothing like the cartoon. It's not Jetfire. Is and that look with that name is not in the cartoon. We've got Skyfire and the way that Skyfire looks. It wasn't 2 years later actually I saw the Jetfire. It's so cute, and I think I'm right. That's the first Hasbro Skyfire toy, because every other one they've called it Jetfire. Obviously, we have Takara called their masterpiece Skyfire because it's based on the cartoon, so he's called Skyfire because of the cartoon. The Commander class one was Jetfire, but was very much based on the cartoons, which at the time I remember even thinking, going, that's not Jetfire, that's Skyfire. I want it to be called Skyfire. So I have that same little fella. And I love Skyfire. Skyfire was the one that I always wanted the toy of. And never saw it. And never, I remember seeing Jetfire, but never clicking to go that's meant to be Skyfire. And I think that we all comfortable with that's what it was supposed to be. That was what they were intended to be, but they never, if they called it Jetfire, fair enough. Sorry, it's called Skyfire, fair enough, but they didn't. They called them Jetfire. So to me, that I think of them as being two separate ones. But we saw, that continues on. It goes back to the same bits. What did you see first? What's your, representation of it? Where do you get that? Is it a toy? Is it a cartoon? Is it a comic? What's your prevalent thought process on it? That's the cartoon. Some of the cartoon episodes in this year are absolutely outstanding. There are some challenging ones as well, but some absolute crackers. And this, things like War Dawn. I thoroughly enjoy War Dawn, Triple Takeover. There's some absolute bangers in there that really give us some looks at Cybertron, looks at the past. And we'll obviously see that going into the future years that they kind of come away from being on Earth. But this. I would argue that if you look at the seasons separately, I think this is the best season. There are some some challenging episodes, but I do think this is out the seasons we got. Taking the headmasters is, I take them separate. I don't really count them as a season. I think that is a special, more so. I know it's not really. It's meant to be season 4, but the ones where we get full on seasons, I think this is the best season of the cartoon.
Yeah, no,
Really gives us some really good episodes.
I definitely agree. There's some really cracking episodes in there. And obviously, Dinobot Island is a big stick out for me. And Megatron's Master Plan, very good one. But yeah,
Yeah, and
of
I
course,
think even them being two partners as well shows you that they're looking to tell a story rather than just being the Masters Universe. Here's introduce a new character. Now, season 2 absolutely has options of that, of just going, "Hi, I am Blaster. Let me help you," and all that kind of stuff. We see that, but also gives some good stories where they spread it out across 2 episodes to allow the story to be told. Some crazy ones that are like guilty pleasures, like the girl who loved Powerglide. Like, that's
yes,
bizarre episode, really.
Hoist
But
goes to
it's
Hollywood.
one that's a guilty pleasure. Oh yeah,
But of course, there's also the Key to Vector Sigma, which is the one of the real standout lore episodes. So much
yeah.
sort of background information and stuff were really really given out in that, and it's such a classic little storyline. And obviously, you got Alpha Trion, um, Orion Pax. It's a great little story, that one.
Yeah, and again, it's. I think there's so many key aspects of the lore of the backstory that we then use going forward. I think come from this episode, from this season. So an absolute crackers in there, and rewatching some of them. Building up to this, I've watched them with my boys, and my youngest, who's 5, who hasn't really grasped Transformers like my youngest did, or my eldest did. He's really enjoyed some of the stuff. Like, he loves Dinobots. Like, who doesn't love Dinobots? Genuinely, I don't think anybody could watch Dinobots. Dinosaurs are cool, so dinosaurs and robots. How can you not be? But I think that's, you know, I think there's always going to be the bit of what's cool when you're a kid, and we have to remember all this, every aspect of this is built for kids. I know we're adults and we still collect, but uh, if it can, near 40 years later, hook a child on wanting to sit and watch it, that goes a long way. And there are some things that I've watched my kids and they don't really grasp. Like, they quickly turn off. Master Universe was absolutely one out for both of them. Both of them got very quickly, were like, no, I don't really like this. Like the new stuff, like Revelation, but I think Transformers has got enough in it that it doesn't just do the commercial bit of it. So yeah, no, absolute cracking,
Yeah, I
cracking
think that
series.
that was something I was trying to sort of express earlier, but failed. But this is the year where Transformers sort of transcends being just a toy line. It really does become a more of a cultural phenomenon this year, and lots of
Oh
80s
yeah,
toy lines did this. Master of the Universe did it. GI Joe's been doing it since the 60s, and Thundercats and Turtles. It's the one I was trying to put my finger on for a second there. Is another massive thing that is way more than the original source material was.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, Transformers did this. This is the year that it really became its own thing.
absolutely, absolutely. So, as we have to go back to toys, then let's go back to the toys. Tell me about your memories of the toys as a young, slightly smaller.
Oh yeah,
We
I
always this
was
height.
I wasn't always this big. No, I'm sure I was at least slightly under 6 foot. God, how old was I? Seven in '85. Right. Anyway, for me, Jetfire was a toy. A friend of mine had him, and I needed it. I wanted it. I to this day have never owned a complete Jetfire. I've had plenty of shockingly broken or missing pieces or yellow ones, but I've never had a decent one. I keep sort of umming and ahhing when I see them. They did a sort of a redone
Yeah.
Macross one a little while ago in the G1 colors, but I didn't bother getting that. But obviously, he's had plenty of other toys, and we've discussed to death already the Skyfire, Jetfire kind of thing. But that figure, the heft of it, the jet mode, all the cool bits of armor. He was sort of like the Boba Fett of Transformers in a
Yeah.
way, because he was something really different from the rest of the stuff that was about. And he had loads of cool weapons and armor, and he looked awesome. And I wanted him and didn't have him. So yeah, that was that. Dinobots. The only Dinobot I ever owned as a kid was Sludge, the ugly cousin of the rest of the Dinobots. I mean, I love Sludge. Don't get me wrong, I love Sludge. But my friends say Grimlock and Snarl and the one whose name's changed. Of course, we never got Swoop. But yeah, I think at this point it was.
Although I did have a child, I did have a friend at school always told every day he had a Swoop at home, but he wasn't allowed to bring it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was like
Everybody has one of those.
we all had those, didn't we?
But yeah, other than that, I think I was still on my quest to get an Optimus Prime, which I still hadn't achieved at that point. But I think Christmas '85, my brother got him, so that was nice. Other than that, I think it was mostly sort of the odd mini bots. I remember getting Power Glide. I remember getting Beachcomber. Love Beachcomber. He's just such a nice little fiddly toy. I don't
Yes.
have one.
Yes.
Definitely don't have one to hand. Was 85
I have one just
Warpath?
out of hand, but I can't reach it. 85 is war. No, is that not
Oh,
86?
no, I'm gonna look now.
The mini bots were always one for me. We didn't have a lot of money, so I got a big toy at Christmas, and then I got smaller things throughout the year. So I had loads of mini bots. I had more mini bots than I had anything else. I think the Insecticons are probably why I got the Insecticons, because they're the smallest that I can add Decepticons. I got a Metroplex for my Christmas like that. I got an Optimus Prime for 84 Christmas, 85 Christmas. I got a Metroplex. And let me tell you that with owning the mini bots, that is the perfect toy to get to go with it. I actually ended up a couple. I never had a complete combiner of any of the lines as a kid, but I had a couple of the limbs because again, I think they were just the right size. So the play factor was a huge bit for me. So the Metroplex and like who with Jetfire. I broke my original Metroplex. I think that the kind of common bit was breakage in the waist. I've had 4 Metroplexes, original Metroplexes since then, and I have a reissue still in box, one of those cheap Chinese reissue, just because I wanted the box in one of my displays. But the one I have still, which is not my original one. I think it was my third one I got. I did have a better copy one, but I stupidly let my children play with it, so he's been damaged a bit. This, I don't know if you can top. I mean, it's not huge. Like he's not huge compared to your Titans of nowadays, but he felt huge as a kid. I remember re-getting him and being like, he's not as quite as big as I thought he was, but an absolute gem of a bot that just the playability of him was incredible. And I did realise you could plug the combiners into the ports, but I had no understanding of why you would do that because it just looked silly. But that was my Christmas present that year, and I absolutely loved it for the fun factor of it. And it's one that, as much as I enjoy the new Big Titan Metroplex, I got the Legends. I can't remember what it's called. Something confusing. Cyan Cultures one. It's the closest I've had to something that got the same feel as the G1 Metroplex. It struck as stunning. I don't collect Legends, but that was one that I was like, that looks really like the G1 Metroplex. I need to have that in my life. So, and I think that's a bit. I'm always looking for to try and grasp that same feeling I had getting those from a kid. You know, Metroplex was outstanding. Grimlock was incredible. The Insecticons, you know, what a selection we had in that year, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, I was just having a look at the list again to refresh my memory. Astro Train. Oh wait, am I on the right
Train.
one?
Astro Train
Was
was one I
Astro
didn't
Train was
experience till years later, and it was what a toy Astro Train is.
Oh, I've just looked. I was looking at the wrong country. We didn't get Astro Train until
No.
the following year. I remember, yeah, just having a look. So
Again,
what?
I don't think about that anymore. I think of it just being that's a season two cat like
Oh
toy,
yeah,
like
yeah,
whether
yeah,
we got
yeah,
it or not, you know. And as
yeah.
you say, some of this stuff leaked. The same as even now, your legacy evolution, it kind of leaks year depending
Oh,
where you
100%.
are. So you know, for me, Astro Train, I'd absolutely count Astro Train as uh, an 85 toy,
Yeah,
and it's one that I wish I had got a reissue of when the reissues were out. I That's one that, you know, one of the things that I love the now is the retro re-releases are doing. I'd love to get a retro release of Astro Train in the kind of movie colours.
yeah. No,
Or the toy colour, the cartoon colours, to be honest. That's beautiful.
he is awesome, but he's an 86 toy technically. Well,
Yeah.
85 for
Okay then.
the rest of the world. Well, anyway, but I did check
If you were
Warpath.
picking him as your top, I would go
Uh,
Warpath. Warpath's 85.
Warpath. Warpath is
Oh,
85. I just checked.
G1
Um,
Warpath.
so
Beautiful.
this is actually I won this at TFN. It's from Toy Fu. They did some custom, different
I love
colored
their stuff.
Warpaths. It's just I it's just one of the. Sorry, I should have done that on camera. He just has one of the
Get that,
best
John.
little transformations where he just sort of pops out and then
Yeah.
that all just
And
comes up.
actually, like, it was great on a cartoon as well. Like, I
Oh
just thought
yeah, no,
Warpath was brilliant.
he was great in the cartoon. He's a great little toy. He's got a fun little transformation. And you know, he's got a built-in weapon. What more could you want as a little thing to toy around with when you're a wee young nipper? And that's one other thing I just want to quickly touch on. When we were kids, it wasn't necessarily because I get fuzzy over which Transformers I had and which Transformers I borrowed off my
Yeah.
mates or whatever else. It was all about what you and your mates had collectively because you'd
Yes.
go around to
Yeah,
your
yeah.
friend's house and loads
Playtimes.
of you would go around and you'd
Oh, yeah.
play with your Transformers in their front room. We had a grass bank that was sort of in the middle of a load of houses where I used to live. We used to in the summer we'd be out there every day with all of our toys, getting them lost in the mud and having to go back at the night and find weapons and stuff in the grass. But that's what we used to do back then with our Transformers, with our He-Mans and our G.I. Joes and whatever else. And yeah, that's and then you'd borrow your Jetfire off your mate and then take it home, play with it, try not to break it, and get things. Yeah, but that's how you experienced at that time. That's how I experienced a lot of the toys.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't have so many of them myself,
100%.
friends had loads of them. That was
Yeah. I didn't have any of I never had a single G1 car from like the kind of actual car ones from 84, 85, or 86. We'll talk movie ones are slightly different. I didn't have any of them. All I had was I got a chance to play them. My big cousin had pretty much all of them, so I got a chance to play them with his. But just what a the play factor. And the interesting bit when you think about the minibots are just reminiscing there back to our conversation from '84 where the minibots were penny racers, whereas obviously
yeah,
these are not. These are kind of just small versions of vehicles, which you've got. You know, you think about the play factor. You've got a tank, and then you put them beside a Grimlock, or you put them beside any of the Autobot cars. It's just scale because out the window. You know, the scale was never. It's the interesting bit when people say about scale. Scale wasn't a thing in the original toys. It was just fun. The robots were kind of scaled in a section. Then you had the minibots. But the minibots were just some absolute brilliant minibots in this year. Like, genuinely some great toys and great wee characters. They all had that bit like Sea Spray's speech in the cartoon. It just was fun. It was about giving you somebody that was enjoyable to watch and have on your screen.
yeah, 100%. Just trying to. check on some of these. I'm trying to remember if this is the first year we get any actual Hasbro produced toys, or are they all still Takara at that point? I think it's quite a
No,
while until we
it's all
get anything.
Takara, yeah. Yeah, I think it's all Takara. The interesting bit that we've not talked about is this is the year of rub signs.
Oh, of course. How
Rub
very silly of
signs
us.
are something that are so ingrained in my brain as being part of that play factor of the toys.
Hmm.
You know, not that you didn't know, especially when you've got some of them have got Autobot, like I've got my G1 Grimlock in front of me. He's got an Autobot sign on his chest, but let's just press his rub sign to find out if he's an Autobot or a Decepticon. Like it adds nothing,
No,
but yeah, adds everything. Like that aspect of just, and it's once you've done it once, do you really need to do it ever again? No,
no, no.
but even now, I'll look for. I've only a handful that the rub signs still kind of work, but I still press it to go. There's just something enjoyable about it, and we'll talk about it in future years where different iterations of the Transformers bring back rub signs, and it's something that I would love for them to do, in kind of modern ones. There's so many aspects that the original toy line that I think
It's fun.
just had fun, had a fun
Yeah,
factor.
I I could be wrong on this, but let's go for it anyway. Wasn't the rub sign originally brought in as a way of knowing your Transformer was a genuine Transformer as opposed to not a Transformer or a knockoff? I know
Heard
knockoffs at
that?
the time
Yeah, I've
weren't.
heard that.
Yeah, because it was something that wasn't easily reproducible by other companies. So having it slapped on a transformer meant it's a transformer. Because as I was saying last time, anything that was a transforming robot when we were kids was a transformer. But if it didn't have the rub sign on it, it wasn't a transformer. Um, but yeah, that's something that's stuck in my mind. Whether or not it's true, I'll do some research for next time.
No, it'd been interesting. I have heard that. And I suppose it's one of those ones, will we ever really know the truth for these things? It'll always be some employee potentially saying it, but actually the person who's making the decision, are they going to come and go, by the way, we did this for this reason. But that, I'm sure it was on the back of the catalogue as well, like the imagery of showing you that, find your allegiance, and it just,
Yeah.
the rub signs add so much to my memory of Transformers, and are such a pivotal point.
Mm.
But again, there is no real, there's no real reason for them.
No,
For the most,
no.
you're not going to be confused as it this or that, and it's
It,
never a part of the show. It's never a, do we
no.
hide it? Do we not? But yeah,
As gimmicks go,
what a
it's a
clever
bit.
invention.
Oh, it's a lovely invention, but as gimmicks go, in terms of, ooh, is he an auto borrow Decepticon? That's it doesn't it doesn't give anything. It would have been maybe if they'd released some sort of mystery figures who you don't know if they're an auto borrow Decepticon until you slap your finger on the badge. That might have been cool. But again, I think that's a little bit out of the realms of possibility at the time. Anyway, let's wrap this up on 1985. There is no Optimus Prime this year, apart from the same Optimus Prime that there was last year. So I have no Optimus Prime to discuss this time. Apart from, I think I still didn't have one, but my brother may have got one that Christmas. Yeah.
But yeah, but that's okay. The first Optimus Prime is so good that it didn't need
Oh,
to be
100%.
updated for a while.
No, no.
I think can we go? Can we go? Can we finish off then with our favorite toys?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This was this is maybe the hardest year for me because it's between two. I am going to give it, however, to Grimlock. I think G1 Grimlock is not just top five Transformers of all time. To me, it's top five toy of all time. Like this, this is. I think I only have three of my original Transformers. I think I've only got three. And two of them I've got two of. So I don't know which one's my actual original one. This is the only one I know is my original toy from being a child. And even when I was trying to kid on I was cool and not into toys, my Grimlock was always in my room, always on display. He has never not been on display somewhere. He was in our first flat with my wife on our mantelpiece. This thing is just so important to me. And It's everything I love about Transformers. It's a great toy in both modes. I just even loved the fact you could make him
It's
kind of
so
his mouse
much good
move.
on
What a
that
child
figure.
I am, even now. But what a toy, what a transformation, and is just a great, also a great character. Like it's just
Yep,
Grimlock. He's just
yep.
brilliant. So that's my pick. What would you go for this year?
If we're going to go with figures that I had, I'm going to go with Warpath. And I'm
Yeah,
not going to go any more into Warpath than I've already done already. But I'm going to have to agree with you for a large extent. Grimlock, I didn't have one till much later, but he's just such an amazing toy, and he's a T-Rex. I mean, dinosaurs, robot dinosaurs that turn into robots that you can fight with. It's just the best. And again, as I mentioned earlier, Jetfire, just a fantastic figure. But if I'm going to have to pick one, it's going to be Warpath.
brilliant choice, Simon.
Right, so next week we will be up to 1986. So 1986 is going to be split into two parts. We're going to have the discussion on 1986, and then there will be a special The Movie show, possibly a little bit further down the line. We'll decide where we're going to stick it in. But yeah, so join us next week for 1986. Cheers, Moff.
Cheers, Simon.
Bye.
Bye.